Thank you, Mr. Ballard. And now for 2 minutes, a closing statement by congressional candidate Mr. David Rouzer. Mr. Rouzer.
Well, thank you, John. I'd like to thank you and everyone who showed up tonight to listen to us here at this forum. You know, the election of 2012 is going to be the most critical one of our lifetime. And as I've thought about this and where we're headed as a country, it reminds me of the summer of 1983 when I was working on our family farm there in Johnston County. And I went to check a thermometer reading in the tobacco curing barn. And when I pulled that thermometer out, it was so hot to the touch, I couldn't help but drop it. And I felt bad about that. I was 11 years old. And my uncle came to me and using that as a life lesson, took me down to Mr. Aubrey Austin's there in downtown Four Oaks. And I went in to see Mr. Austin. He was standing right there behind the counter as he usually was. And I told him, I said, Mr. Austin, I have broken this thermometer and I need to buy a new one. And he looked at me and he said, son, he said, don't worry. He said, I'll sell you a new one. And he said, in fact, I won't charge you full price. I'll let you buy it at cost. That's where we are as a country today with this election in 2012. We have an opportunity to get our country back on track at cost. If we don't take this opportunity to move this country back in the right direction, we're going to pass a huge debt to every person coming after us. Future generations are going to be saddled with more and more debt and economic decline that you and I cannot imagine. We'll never be able to get out of it. This is our opportunity to set America back on the right course. Now, I believe in free enterprise. I believe in a limited government. And even more than those two principles, I believe in America. I believe this is the greatest country on earth, and I want to do everything that I can to keep it. I have never promised anyone anything other than my very best effort. We have tremendous problems that we face, and we've got to have solutions and move this country forward in the direction that it deserves to go. Thank you, and may God bless you always.
Gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time once again. Now, if anybody from the audience would like to step up to the microphones and ask a question, I'm going to give Bill the microphone back to handle this part of our program. Bill?
Okay, again, just come up to the front of the auditorium here, and please make it a question and not a speech. And refer to no speeches. But I would, as an aside, just like to thank our candidates up here for being very, very respectful of each other's time and the time of our audience. I think really appreciate that. Anyway, we will start off with the right-hand side. I'm sorry, left-hand side.
Okay, my question is for Mr. Rouzer. Mr. Rouzer, in light of the low approval rating of Congress, what do you plan to do about it if you're elected?
Well, I think one of the reasons why Congress has such a low approval rating is so few politicians are willing to come forward and state what the truth is and have an honest dialogue with the American people. One of the reasons why I have been as successful as I have back home in my state Senate district and was reelected with 70% of the vote was when I go back home and I talk to those that elected me, I tell them what the problems are. We have an honest dialogue and we propose solutions. And that's how we're going to move this country forward. And I think when Congress steps to the plate and looks America in the eye and says, these are what our problems are, and these are the solutions that we can put forward to address these problems, I think their approval rating will go dramatically higher.
My question also is for Mr. Rouzer. You mentioned before that you would pledge not to raise any taxes and to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc., and cuts across the government spectrum in order to meet a lower budget and to cut the deficit. How do you then maintain that you're going to be able to help these people other than putting them on the streets begging?
I think you've been watching the wrong ads. I have never said that I would cut Social Security. I have never said that I would vote to cut Medicare. The way we address our budget issue is twofold. We must grow the economy. When you grow the economy, you have more revenue coming into the U.S. Treasury. We need to preserve and protect Social Security and Medicare for future generations. And even under the Ryan plan that people like to castigate, no one is affected who is 55 years of age today or older. Not one dime is taken from the paycheck or from the benefits provided through Medicare or Social Security under that plan, Medicare specifically, unlike the ads that are on TV. So let's set the record straight on that. Now, when you grow the economy, you have more revenue coming into the Treasury, and I can tell you from my service in the executive branch, there is waste and abuse in every federal agency all across the board. We need to address that. We need to look and see where there's duplication. And where there's duplication and where the states can do a better job, let's block grant the money back to the states so they can do the job that they need to do.
Mr. Rouzer, what is your position on the request from the insurance company to increase our the amount of increase 30% for homeowners insurance that they're requesting, as opposed to the rest of the state getting a smaller increase?
Well, it's absolutely wrong. You know, folks need to realize all across North Carolina that the coastal portion of this state is very important to the economy. Now, that is a state issue, it's not a federal issue, but I would suggest that the folks in this area get together, and I know that you are, and you're going up to Raleigh. I believe there's a hearing coming up in the next month or so with the insurance commissioner where those issues can be addressed, and that is where it needs to be addressed. Now, one thing from the federal perspective, I'm a very strong supporter of our national flood insurance program. That's very important in this area, and of course that obviously would have a direct impact on insurance rates.
This is for Mr. Rouzer. You talked earlier about securing the border. You didn't talk about how you would do that. What are your thoughts on how you would secure the border without building a fence or a wall?
Well, number one, I think if you go back and listen to what I said, I have signed the Border Protection Pledge, which means a fence, a wall, and every other measure available to secure the border. And I am serious about that commitment. I don't sign any pledge that I'm not serious about, number one. Number two, we must put in place worker visa programs, guest worker programs, so that the farmers of this state and others can get the labor that they need when they need it. When you do that, if you have a good workable system where folks can come here and work, and then when they get done with their work, they can go home, guess what? You don't have all these folks paying coyotes money to try to get them across the border. You have a legal channel, you know who they're working for, why they're here, and then when they get done with their work, they go home. That will address the immigration crisis that we have in this country, both measures.
I also have a question for Mr. Rouzer. You mentioned bringing market forces to bear on the healthcare field. As an employee of a large company, how this works for me is that I'm a member of that company. There's usually only one choice for an insurance company. It's Blue Cross and Blue Shield and no insurance, or Aetna or no insurance. And also, once you're a part of that insurance, they tell you, here's the 2 or 3 doctors you can see. What is your plan for creating choice and selection in the healthcare field?
Well, we have to do a number of things. So one is, I believe that you should be able to take your insurance from one employer to the next, just like you move your 401k. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that. Number two is you ought to be able to compete across state lines. If Illinois or Idaho or whoever has an insurance plan that meets your needs, that is more affordable, then you ought to be able to purchase that. That would help to bring about some insurance. And of course, in order to do that, you've got to get rid of some of the rules and regulations that are in place at the federal level. In addition, those that are small employers, those who are small businesses, they ought to be able to come together and pool their resources, what they call associated health plans, where you can have realtors pool together, where you can have farmers pool together, and therefore you have more purchasing power in order to buy and have more leverage to be able to buy an insurance product that's affordable. So there's a number of things that we need to do in order to create more transparency and more competition, and that's just a few of them, and it's too difficult to address all of them in 1 minute, but that's a good start.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we'll take One more question from the audience.
Again, Mr. Rouzer, I'd like to know a little more about you. And North and South Carolina have lost a lot of jobs because of the textile industry. South Carolina has been very aggressive in bringing a new industry. This county, over the past year or two, has the possibility, and again, this is a taxpayer, not somebody who's up in Raleigh, of bringing in a couple of large industries into Brunswick County. And it appears to the local taxpayer that our legislature was just outbid for it. I'd like to know how you stood on that.
Well, first of all, I can tell you that business goes where it is welcome. There are a lot of folks in Brunswick and Columbus that obviously wanted those businesses here, but the nature of our business climate in North Carolina is not as competitive as it is in South Carolina and Tennessee and elsewhere. We have some of the highest marginal tax rates of any state, certainly as compared to South Carolina. We have rules and regulations that are in place that are more onerous than they are in South Carolina. So there's a business climate aspect that has to be addressed. Now, we took measures in the past 2 years when we were in the majority, and I was part of the brand new majority. We hadn't been in the majority since 1869. We took measures to make for a better business climate, such as regulatory reform, tort reform, all those things. And next session, I know they're going to be working on tax reform to help bring us a little bit more in line with South Carolina. But as far as any specific vote, there was no specific vote in the Senate. There was nothing that was brought forward that I'm aware of that was dealing with those particular companies.
What about
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the questions from the audience. Again, we thank our candidates on the first panel. We're going to take a 10-minute break and then reconvene at 7:15. We will have the House candidates for both District 17 and 18, as well as the Senate candidates and one of the candidates for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.